Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 120 of Page Valley Livin'. And boy, have we got a special one for you here today. We've got Nolan Nichols with us. He graduated in the Luray High School class of 2010. And it's sort of the local boy made good here. He's gone out in the world and he has worked for all sorts of corporations, either giving inspirational speeches or working as a videographer for such groups as ESPN, Caesars Entertainment, Carnival Cruises, Disney Parks, Hilton, Delta, Universal, Visit Orlando, Levi's, the U.S. Travel Association, James Madison University, and Virginia Tech Athletics. And we're going to hear a great story about an experience with Frank Beamer, the well-known Hall of Fame coach for the Virginia Tech football team. We're going to hear about experiences maybe with Shaq and Kenny from Inside NBA. He also worked with Good Morning America and shadowed that production as a while. He's done a lot as a TV videographer person, and also now has his own company, A Million Dreams, which you can hire out for inspirational speeches for your corporation or your team building exercises that you need out there. We're going to talk all about that and so much more with Nolan Nichols right here on episode 120 of Page Valley Living when we come back right after this. At Luray Caverns, from well-lighted paved walkways, explore cathedral-sized rooms with ceilings 10 stories high, and walk among huge chambers filled with towering stone columns. Come visit Geology's Hall of Fame, only at Luray Caverns. Visit them online at luraycaverns.com to plan your trip today. Welcome back, everyone, and we do want to say thank you to our sponsor, Luray Caverns, for episode 120 of Page Valley Living. Want to say thanks to Nolan Nichols for being here with us today at Ralph Dean Park. Beautiful weather today, man. I was worried it was going to be boiling.
Couldn't ask for a better day, and just love this place. Brings back so many memories. We got Field 1 right across where I just grew up playing baseball, and just so many great memories there. So it's really special to be here doing this interview with you.
And you are a 2010 graduate of Luray High School. That was the first class, as you reminded me, at the new high school that graduated from the new high school that we have that was opened and built in 2009 when it first opened. But 2010, the class of 2010, the first one to go through. And as we said before, folks, this is kind of a local boy makes good. Nolan has been involved in all sorts of video production at very high levels, and we're going to talk about those stories in a moment, but we want to talk about where it all began, back at Luray Elementary School, where you got your first taste of video production in 7th grade and Mrs. Yoder's class through the Bullpup News. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Bullpup News was something that in 6th and 7th graders could do there at LES, and every Thursday we would stay after school. Mr. Yoder would, give us all roles, and some people would be the videographer, some people would be the anchors. I think I was the teleprompter person, but we would turn this class into a studio, and it really kind of piqued my interest in TV production and video. And that wasn't part of Mr. Yoder's job description.
Right.
He just went above and beyond, and I think we have so many amazing teachers in this county that go above and beyond, and sometimes you don't get to see the ripple effect of that impact immediately, but it really planted the seeds for a career in video that I'm still having the ripple effects of today.
Now, something I want to ask, now, if I heard about this today, it would not surprise me one bit, but in 2005-ish, this is kind of a cutting edge kind of thing. I mean, today, people like us making videos all the time on YouTube, but how was it in those early days? I mean, how in the world did he come up with this idea?
Yeah, somehow he had access to these big cameras at the time, and letting 6th and 7th graders just kind of roam the classrooms and the halls was pretty risky, to be honest, but it gave it like this fun novelty, and people wanted to tune in, because again, you're not on the internet seeing videos of your classmates. Like, this was like the first edition of being able to kind of see yourself on TV, the different grade levels represented. It was just a really cool novelty factor that was like ahead of its time, really. And
Wow.
it really
Wow.
kind of gave it a big time feel and is really special.
I can't imagine that early on getting that exposure, because as you went into high school, you played golf and baseball, but you said you really didn't have quite the talent as a basketball player. But Coach Jim Sanders invited you to travel along with the basketball team, and you did a video of them practice and traveling with them sophomore through senior year. Describe that.
Yeah, so my two younger sisters, MK and Morgan, were great at basketball. My dad was amazing at basketball when he was in high school and still is. I was terrible at basketball. I would lose every horse competition in the backyard. I was so bad, but I really wanted to get involved with the winter sport. And Coach Sanders was like, hey, if you want to be the videographer for us, you know, you can travel to the home and away games. I was dressing, you know, with the team on game day, so I had those infamous sweater vests. So it really felt like I was part of the team.
Right.
And I didn't have to make a shot, which was amazing. You know, I could just be, you know, on the team, but be the farthest from the court, videoing the games. And this was obviously well before NFHS, where game film is so widely available now. Back then, it was kind of a luxury to have it. So it was really fun to be able to travel with the team and feel like you're part of the team without having to let folks down on the court.
I'm going to come back to that traveling with the team and wearing the jersey or the coat there and never making a shot. I'm going to come back to that in just a second, but I want to hit real quickly on what you did for the Luray High School basketball team this past season. They had a remarkable run and won the Class 1 state championship in basketball. How did you get involved in that project, and what was that like? Because it really was a dramatic season.
It was an amazing season, and my little cousin Matthew Owens,
Okay.
you know, on the team, and it was so much fun, you know, following him his whole career, not just his past year, but the whole team. It was just a really incredible season. And when I graduated in 2010, it was 2011. It was that next year when Luray went to the state semifinals. And at the time, it was actually in the state quarters. My sister was playing in the state quarters at JMU alongside the boys team. So you had two teams that were having an incredible year in 2011. I was at Virginia Tech at the time, but I created a highlight video, like a hype video for those games. And it was, you know, people really enjoyed it. It was well received. So this year when they were going back to states, I was like, it was Joey Haddock reached out and was like, hey, would you consider doing another one? And I was like, you know what, like, the team hasn't been back to states since 2011. You know, game film's a lot more widely available now. I'm like, let's do it. And it was just so much fun to put that together, and just so proud of the boys and the team, the whole team, that put together a really magical run.
You know, it was great. I remember walking into the gym, and I was like, who is this guy with these drones flying around during pregame? And I was like, what in the world is happening? But I'm going to tell you what, I got to say this right before we move on. That hype video you made right before they went to the state tournament or the state title game, I remember it was before the championship or before the beginning of the state tournament, but it was the one with the Gene Hackman and all those moments. I have two quick questions. First of all, it was awesome. It was awesome. I have one quick question. I hope I'm not messing up on air here at all. How did you get around the copyright issues?
Copyright's a great question. So I think, you know, when you have things in short snippets with movies, it can fall under fair use, where you're putting your own spin on it. You're not mimicking what they're doing, but it's in bite-sized segments where you're getting around that copyright. And especially on social media, a lot of times social media has a lot of parameters now. So if it gets through social media and they don't flag it, you're good to go.
Because we've had problems like that where we filmed at festivals and there was a band playing a cover song.
Yeah.
And just because that song sounded like the original, we got some flags and things like that. Thank goodness you had an answer for that, because I was so afraid I was putting you on the spot.
It's a great question.
But that's the first thing I thought, this is amazing, but how is he using those clips? But anyway, let's keep moving on, because we got a lot we want to cover here, folks. This is a part that I am very excited about, because you took your experience from the Bullpup News, and you took your experience from working with Coach Sanders and the basketball team to go on and actually, now this is where I want to circle back to the you never took a shot, but you got a Division I athletic scholarship to go to Virginia Tech, and you didn't play a sport. Tell me, how does that work?
It was a very untraditional route, let me tell you. So it was maybe my junior year, and again, it makes no sense, but it was my junior year, and Coach Sanders had a former player years ahead of me, Ben Malalu. He went to Virginia Tech, and I grew up a Hokie, a Virginia Tech fan. He went to Virginia Tech. His roommate got on board with the video department at Virginia Tech.
Okay.
And Ben Malibu Coach Sanders heard it from Ben Malibu that there's this program available at Virginia Tech where you can film all the football practices. It's highly intense. I mean, you feel like the reason it was a Division I scholarship is because you literally were putting in as much time as the athletes, like filming everything. Football was a primary sport, but we filmed all the sports too. So there was no off season besides like June and a little bit of July. So it was very intense, but they only hired like 2 people a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was highly competitive. And that was my goal though. In high school, junior year, Coach Sanders was telling me about that. I'm like, Virginia Tech is school I want to go to. This is what I want to do. And spring of my freshman year, I go through the process, and fortunate enough, God worked it out to where I got one of those 2 positions that they were hiring, and was just a tremendous opportunity, both professionally and then financially too. It was a blessing that I still draw from today.
And you got your undergrad degree in multimedia journalism. You got a graduate degree in education, but there's 2 specific things I want to ask about. First of all, Game Day. What was it like working with Game Day when Game Day was on campus in Blacksburg?
Yeah, it was super cool. I think when Game Day came, I was always like a big fan of that show growing up. And when they came, they're pretty self-sufficient operation. They're doing this every week, but there would be some things where we would have to send them some videos and files. But what was really cool was, I'm not afraid to send out a cold email. So I was able to send out an email to the producer, and we could go by and kind of see the truck, like how are they putting Game Day together, go on the set. It was super amazing. I actually reached out to Chris Fowler, the play-by-play. He came and gave a talk to our students within the video department. So it was really cool just to see it up close, like how they make that show look easy, and it's so many moving parts. And it was just like a really big core memory of my time there at Tech.
Did you meet Coach Corso?
I did not. I saw him from a distance. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him like up close because he's the GOAT. He's the college football legend.
He is the man, and his stepping down will change that show forever. McAfee is pretty good, but Coach was Coach, and man, he had a personality that no one can repeat. Now, you told me that you were going to tell me a little story about one of your highlights when you flew on a private jet with the legendary coach Frank Beamer to go to the NCAA headquarters, which I didn't realize they were in Connecticut. But tell me about that trip.
Yeah, so ESPN's headquarters is in Connecticut, and they don't do this anymore, but it used to be every summer they would bring all the head coaches there, and they would go on all these ESPN shows just so they would have it ready for when the football season began.
Gotcha.
And the person that was going to go up with Coach Beamer to kind of do some behind-the-scenes content of the day, something happened. They needed somebody to step in their shoes, and I gladly, wanted to step in. So it was really incredible to be able to travel up with Coach Beamer. And it was my one and only private jet experience, but it was really amazing. I remember when the airplane took off, and I was just kind of thinking, like, what an incredible ride it's been of like watching Frank Beamer growing up, on TV, and then suddenly I'm sitting behind him on a private jet. It's just like one of these things of like, you can have big dreams and you can see them come through, and even more so. And it was just amazing. Just that moment was just a picture of like the power of a dream. And something to work for and something to chase.
I was with a group of friends on New Year's Eve, 1999. Virginia Tech was getting ready to go to the national championship and play Florida State. And we were getting ready to do a group toast at midnight. And we couldn't think of who to toast. And I was so into Virginia Tech at the time. Finally, everybody was looking at everybody, and I said, Frank Beamer, you're not going to find a better man, So we toasted to Frank Beamer.
I love it. On, amazing guy.
New Year's Eve, 1999, or going into 2000. And believe it or not, Y2K really did happen. Right? So you were at Virginia Tech. You managed 70 student interns that were on staff. You directed, I think this is really cool, you directed the video board. It shows at Lane Stadium during football games. I think that's really cool. And you produced some games for ESPN on the app. But I want to get to some more things because we're trying to cram a lot into this first segment. I have probably 1,000 more Virginia Tech questions, but I'm going to move on because I want to hear what it was like, given the fact that the finals have just happened. The NBA Finals, the New York Knicks finally getting that championship, and an amazing Game 4, that ending of that. But what it was like to be on the set of Inside the NBA in Atlanta with Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Sir Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith. What was it like? I noticed in some of your promo videos they mention you one time or say something about, what was that like, man?
It was amazing. At the time at Virginia Tech, I was wondering what the next thing was really thinking hard into sports television. And Inside the NBA, outside of College Game Day, Inside the NBA is, just the greatest show. So I actually just wrote a letter to Ernie Johnson. It's like, hey, could I just, not ask for a job, I would just love to shadow how this production works. I get a call from Atlanta a couple months later. He's like, I don't know how I just got this letter on my desk, but you're welcome to come up. Let's make this happen. So I go to Atlanta, and I'm there the whole day seeing how they make the show. And Charles Barkley's ripping me the whole night. I mean, he's like, so how'd you get here? And I said, I wrote a letter to Ernie, and Charles is like, it's a good thing you didn't write me because I wouldn't write you back. And, he's just, Shaq is saying, oh, what do you do? At the time I was in grad school. I'm like, I'm in grad school. And Shaq's like, oh, grad school is for people that can't get jobs. And he's partly right on that. And at the end of the night, Charles is like, if you see me in public, don't act like you know me. So he's just ripping me the whole night, but it was just such an amazing experience to, at ESPN and other places, I shadowed Good Morning America and got to meet Robin Roberts, and that was an amazing experience to see how that show was put together. But everything at ESPN and Good Morning America, everything was very a formula. It follows X, Y, and Z. And Inside the NBA, they just let loose. Like, they just want to make good television, and they don't care what the heck they do. They don't care what copyrights they break, And the environment was just amazing, and it shows, like, Ernie Johnson's generosity too, and just letting a kid just come up, and I still try to keep in touch with him each year, and just really appreciative for that. But it just goes to show that sometimes just take that risk, take that step of faith. You're going to hear more no's than yeses, but you never know the yeses you might get.
I can't imagine sitting there being hacked on by Shaq and Charles. I mean, wow, man, that is an experience. That's an icebreaker at dinner parties there, man. That is definitely. And you also, I remember talking with you one-on-one. We had lunch a while back, and you were talking about Good Morning America, and I believe, I want you to share a little bit about that experience, but also I believe it was that experience that led you to kind of decide against going further into TV production, and partly due to concerns about layoffs in media and things like that, but that's kind of what led you to maybe a little bit where you are now.
Yeah, so, I did the same thing. I reached out to somebody on Good Morning America if I could shadow a production, because I was really intrigued by that environment too, in the behind-the-scenes role, not in front of the camera.
Right.
Go up there. It was an amazing experience. I mean, Robin and George Stephanopoulos, they couldn't have been nicer. That team is amazing. But, it made me realize, like, okay, I went to the Inside the NBA before Good Morning America. I realized that actually Inside the NBA, I like that a little better, that environment. But and still to this day, a lot of media companies are going through mergers, and there's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of volatility in the media industry, and I could kind of see that coming. I was keeping close tabs on the industry. I knew that there were going to be some rocky years ahead, and they're still kind of in the midst of those rocky years. I could go in depth. Why does ESPN lay off people when sports are popular? I could give you like an hour TED talk that nobody wants to listen to on that. But it's a weird time in sports and in media right now. I saw that coming, and I was like, my minor was in tourism in college, and I'm like, let me look at tourism jobs that also intersect with travel, with video. So, that's kind of what got me kind of out of the industry a little bit.
Well, we're going to talk about where you are right now with your own company called A Million Dreams. And you have given inspirational speeches, or speeches of innovation, leadership, and influence to a lot of major corporations. We read some of those earlier, and we're going to talk about, how you ended up there and what you are doing now with that experience when we come right back after another word from our sponsor. At Luray Caverns, the Smithsonian Institution said, quote, "It is safe to say there is probably no other cave in the world more completely and profusely decorated than that of Luray. Come see Mother Nature showing off, only at Luray Caverns. Visit them online at luraycaverns.com to plan your trip today."
Thanks for staying up, y'all. Inside the NBA, presented by Kia from beautiful Studio J here in Midtown Atlanta. Ernie Johnson, Can't tell everybody where we are.
I need a Jet Smith.
I already had a psych. You had a crazy guy at the studio.
Charles Barkley.
That's inviting people to the studio.
That's Nolan from Virginia Tech, man.
Just because if somebody writes you a note, you have to answer.
Oh, he's a broadcasting kid, man.
Telling people where we are.
Shaquille O'Neal is also here.
Want to tell them the address and the
People
phone
know
number?
who we are. I already gave out your number. I put it on Twitter. We are down to the last 25.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 120. We're sitting here with Nolan Nichols here out at Ralph Dean Park in Luray. A Luray native himself, Nolan has gone out in the world and made quite a splash. We spent the first segment talking about some of his TV productions, shadowing Good Morning America, Inside the NBA. He was at Virginia Tech doing videography and worked with Game Day and took a private jet with Frank Beamer on a trip up to Connecticut. But I tell you, what we want to talk about now, we're going to transition here into A Million Dreams. But before we get to that, one stop that you had from doing TV production before you fully got into your own business was you were working with U.S. Travel Association. You were working with tourism. You talked about that a little bit. You were the organization's first videographer. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so some people might wonder, like, you know, when you had all these amazing experiences at Virginia Tech, why do you leave? And for me, it was a dream job, right? That was my dream. That wasn't my job. But there's another, you got to flip the coin. The other side of a dream job is that it can be just a normal job that enables you to live your dream. So for me, you know, you're working nights, weekends, holidays, and sports. You're working 9 to 5, and then the games are never 9 to 5. You're working at nights, and I was like, I think I want something more. I want to be able to have a life outside of 5 o'clock. So, you know, my dream job took on that new meaning. I saw this job posting with U.S. Travel Association where they're hiring a new job that they never had before. Didn't know anybody in that organization, and went through the process. And I'm like, I think this is the leap I need to take. And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But let's take that risk, take that leap of faith, and just ended up being just a tremendously incredible job, incredible organization that I learned so much from, and just so many incredible people from.
Yeah, you met, you got to meet with major industry leaders, the chairman of Disney Parks, the CEO of Delta Airlines, the president of Carnival Cruises, and as we said earlier, you have now provided your services, your speaking services to Caesars Entertainment, Carnival Cruises, Disney Parks, Boys and Girls Club of America, Hilton, Delta, Universal, Visit Orlando, Levi's, JMU, and we talked about your time with Virginia Tech and the San Francisco Giants as well as an organization. And you know, one thing I find interesting to get into inspirational speaking or being a speaker, a keynote speaker that corporations can hire for various reasons. And the things that you speak about are leadership, innovation, and influence. Now, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording today. A lot of times when people become inspirational speakers or motivational speakers, with the exception of Chris Farley, as Matt Foley. But a lot of them, they'll either talk about situations, tragic usually, situations in their own life where maybe they've suffered with addiction. Maybe they've been in a tragic accident and they've lost a limb. Maybe it's a soldier who comes back from war, or it's, like I say, a person who's had a traumatic experience in their life. You're not coming from that angle. You're coming from a little bit different angle. So tell me a little bit about how you chose what you wanted to speak about and how you got into this.
Yeah, so I never knew this industry existed. I attended my first conference through U.S. Travel Association, saw the keynote speaker, and I'm like, I think this is a field I want to go into. It's ironic because I was super shy in high school. Some teachers still can't believe I'm doing this because I was so shy. But it was just kind of little things over time, managing students, leading a life group at the church I was going to at Virginia Tech. And then all these things kind of came together. I saw a keynote speaker for the first time. I'm like, I think I would like to do this. At first I was thinking as a side hustle, and then as I started doing it, I'm like, I actually think I want to make this my full-time gig. And really what I speak on is, a lot of people think like, oh, video and speaking are two different things, but it's all storytelling. Like the stories we tell ourselves, they dictate how we see the future, how we make sense of the past, how we live in today. So really what I talk about is, how do we create moments that matter? Moments that matter for yourself personally, moments that matter for your teams, your organizations. You think about traveling. A lot of people are going on summer trips. When you go on your summer vacation, you're excited, but honestly, the minute-by-minute score of traveling's terrible. Like you're going through long lines at TSA, you're cramped in the airport, you have traffic on the road, you might have a long line at a restaurant, but you think of the moments, like the 3 moments that happen from that trip. When we travel, we think of the moments, not the minutes, but when we live our lives, we think of the minutes and not the moments. So how do we create more moments in our personal lives, in our professional roles? That's really the lane that I've really focused in on, and it's been quite a journey so far.
Well, I tell you, folks, you can go on YouTube and look up A Million Dreams. You can look up Nolan Nichols, and you can see some of the excerpts from some of your inspirational speeches. I saw one in particular where you were talking about moments, and you made a comment. You said, "We don't have a bad day. We just have a bad moment that we choose to carry around with us all day." Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I kind of take it actually from the story of the Titanic. You know, I go through this in most of all my talks where Titanic's supposed to be this indestructible ship, and the reason is because there were watertight compartments. But in a crazy way, the engineers didn't put lids on the watertight compartments. So when the iceberg impacted one compartment, it spilled over to the next one, the next one, the next one, the ship splits in half. We think that's a blunder on the engineer's part, but it happens in our days all the time. You know, we get a spicy email by 9 a.m., just shut the laptop down, or a rude customer, and you just want to close the doors for the day. You know, how do we create a bad moment from turning into a bad day? There are bad days out there. I don't want to pretend like there's no bad days, but I think if we're honest, most of the time, they're just bad moments that we allow to really sink the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and maybe the rest of the month.
So don't be absorbed by someone who may have a case of the Mondays.
Right.
As they would say in Office Space, right? Well, you know, you've, like we said, you have talked with some really big groups and at conferences and things like that. You got involved or you got inspired by this at a conference you went to in 2019. So you've been doing this now 7 years. And what's the biggest gig you ever landed?
Yeah, you know, it's been quite a journey. You know, 6 or 7 years ago when I saw it, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to work in the college space doing professional speaking. And then that morphed. I would say I got really serious about it in 2023. And then 2025, the beginning of last year is when I went full time into it. And it's, you know, U.S. Travel Association, the people I met through that gig opened a lot of doors.
Right.
Because I'm holding, a person with a video camera is able to get in rooms they have no business being in. So that really opened up, because it's a really tough industry to make it in.
Right.
And those contacts really opened up doors initially, especially, you know, people at Carnival Cruise Line and Caesars Entertainment. You know, they opened up a lot of early doors that helped get this momentum going. I would say some of the, I mean, I kind of speak all over. I mean, I was in, you know, last year I was in Seattle and LA, and then, you know, Grand Forks, North Dakota, Boston. You know, it's literally coast to coast.
Wow. Tomorrow
Tomorrow I'm leaving to go to New Orleans. So it's, you know, big towns, small towns. I'm on the road a lot. My mom kind of checks my Insta story to see what city I'm in today. It's really rare that I'm in DC where I live like more than 7 days in a row. But I like, you know, I like being on the go. I love traveling.
How many gigs are you doing a month or a year?
You know, it fluctuates. I think last year was like 32 gigs. And we're probably on pace for that this year, maybe a little bit more. Sometimes it's hard to forecast. Some people will tell you 6 months out they want you. Some people tell you a year out, some people tell you 3 weeks out. So it's a little bit of everything. So it's hard for me to predict my schedule until I'm within like 2 weeks. But really fortunate. I still do some video production as well. I haven't fully given that up. I still enjoy it. I still go back and work half the Virginia Tech home games still.
Oh, wow.
So it's still fun to stay close to the video roots, but speaking's really where I'm putting all the time and marketing and energy into.
I got to dip back to our first segment for a moment. If you're still working with them, have you noticed a difference since Franklin's there now?
For sure, it's been a big difference. In fact, I was filming on the field when he was introduced at the last football home game last year.
Right.
And I'm in a lot of pictures, me in this dumb orange hat that I'm wearing. So I got an Apple Watch notification from ESPN a couple months ago, and I look down, and it's my head behind Franklin. I'm like, you know, I'm just such an idiot. But it's really fun still to get back.
Well, folks, if you don't know, we're talking about the new Virginia Tech head football coach, James Franklin, came from Penn State. Big hopes and aspirations now that he's with the Virginia Tech Hokies. As we said, your company is called A Million Dreams. It's named after a song from The Great Showman from 2018. When you go and do a corporate gig of some type or any kind of speaking engagement, what do you hope that you've accomplished when you walk off, by the time you walk off stage?
Yeah, my biggest thing is, like, do people have tangible, practical takeaways that they can take away? That this isn't just like a feel-good, time that we're doing. But this is something that they have tools that they can put into their lives, whether it's building more day-tight compartments, building more moments that matter. It's talks from 30 minutes and to 90 minutes. I did one in Virginia Beach on Friday for 90 minutes. So it's all different, time lengths. But I want people to walk out of the room obviously feeling good, feeling inspired about the future and the disruption that we're in the world, but also like tangible tools and takeaways that they can put into their lives. And when you hear people afterwards saying that, you impacted them, that's what it's all about, impact. Hopefully, finances will take care of itself in the end, but it's all about, impact.
Well, because you've been so nice to come out here on this sunny day, going to give me a little red top on the dome a little bit, I believe, here, because I forgot to wear my hat. But, if someone is out there watching and they might have a conference, a retreat, something coming up with the office or a group, a nonprofit, whatever it may be, how could they contact Nolan Nichols to get him to come out and give a little motivational speech?
Yeah, so if you just go to nolannicholsspeaks.com, so it's my name, nolannicholsspeaks.com. Just redid the website actually 2 weeks ago, so that has like all the information, the different like topics I speak on, lots of videos there too. So if people just want to like check out a video, you can go to that website. That has my email on it, has my LinkedIn on it, Instagram, all at the bottom of the page. So feel free to reach out. But I love, I always try to, that's part of the reason why I still go back to Virginia Tech to video. It's a big reason why I still, come to Luray a good amount of weekends to visit with family. You never want to lose sense of where you came from.
Right.
And even just, again, being at Ralph Dean Park across from Field 1, it's like you never want to lose sense of that inner child and knowing your roots. And just tremendously grateful for the community, the teachers, the coaches, my family that poured into my life in just profound ways. And, there's a really good thing going here in the community. And, sometimes when you're in the trenches, you can lose sight of the bigger picture. And it's just a joy to say that I'm from Luray and in Page County.
Well, you're used to speaking for, as you said, an hour, hour and a half. But if you had to boil it down into about 60 seconds or so, what do you think is the best advice that you have ever given?
Yeah, I think, it's a combination of, I read a lot. I mean, I read like a book a week, so I'm like a book nerd. So I'm all, I don't have a car, which is why, I'm on public transit and airplanes a lot. So I'm, always reading. It's, when I talk to people is, it's about, taking joy in the journey. Joy isn't an output, it's an input. Take joy in the journey, building moments into your day, into your week, into your family. Building those day-tight compartments, investing in relationships. That's a big thing. And, a talk on is that Harvard did this study. It's not about, what you ate in your diet. That's important. It's not about how much exercise you got. All that's important. The number one indicator was relationships. So whether it's family, whether it's friendships, whether it's relationships with your faith, all of those things matter. And if you're going to double down on anything, you double down on relationships. And that's been something that I've tried to do the best that I can, even though I fall way short, is like, whether it's friends from college, friends from high school, when you think of them, how do you reach out to them? Just say, hey, I'm thinking of you, because it's easy to grow apart over time. Time happens, and, how can you double down on relationships is really a big X factor with anything in life.
Well, I tell you, the last half hour has been a joyful journey with you. Thanks, Nolan Nichols, so much for being with us today. Tell people one more time how they can reach you and get a hold of you.
Yeah, so if you go to nolannichols.com, that'll be the webpage that has everything. And Randy, I want to thank you too. I think what you've built with Page Valley News, it's really incredible. I mean, it's a difficult time in media right now, and I have a cousin that lives in Florida, Sandra Fox, and she goes to the app to see what's going on, to be tied back to home. It's really special to have a place where you can still feel connected when media is changing, but you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. So I appreciate everything that you're doing.
All right, one more time, that website.
nolannicholsspeaks.com.
All right. Well, thanks again to Nolan Nichols for being with us here today at Ralph Dean Park in Luray. It's been episode 120. If you like the episode, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Page Valley News. We want to thank Eleanor Arrington for all of her work behind the camera today and in the editing room. And as we end each and every episode, we want to urge you to go down to the Page County Animal Shelter and help one of our furry friends find a forever home. For Nolan Nichols, I'm Randy Arrington from Ralph Dean Park in Luray, telling you until next week, enjoy that Page Valley living.